Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very exciting and very special episode of Dungeon Master of None. I'm Dungeon Master Rob.
And I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And today we have with us two very special guests from the United Paizo Workers Union. Jason and Andrew, welcome and hello.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be invited.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
So before we get into any of the serious stuff, I just have to commend you and the other workers at Paizo on the amazing slogan, "Don't split the party."
Yes, it's slam dunk, A+ for sure.
I can't remember who originally asked, hey, do we have a slogan? And other people were tossing out just a couple of ideas, and then you came up with that, and everyone was like unanimously, oh yeah, that's it. Contest's over. I don't know why we're done. The conversation ended in 30 seconds because it is fantastic. It's on brand. It's short. It totally exemplifies everything that we're doing. We are super happy that people have responded to it the same way that we did.
I mean, I have some other pitches for you. You've already picked the perfect slogan, but here's a couple other ones. Let me know what you think. Hit point damage to one is hit point damage to all.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Let's see. No gods, no game masters.
I like that one. These are all based off of our...
Last one. Don't resurrect, organize.
I like that too.
Yeah, okay.
We have a deep grounding in old school IAW and other slogans, and there's a rich vein if you need to diversify, but it's hard to beat "Don't Split the Party," which really communicates everything that you're trying to go for here.
Well, we are going to need more game referential blog post titles, so I'll keep some of those in mind.
Yeah,
Hit us up because we got them.
We may slap some of those on a T-shirt. Just
Yeah.
You just need the little cat from the IWW, but maybe it's like a dire
Displacer
cat.
Beast. We actually
Displacer Beast. Those might be trademarked.
That's right. That's probably
we
trademarked.
don't have those,
Nope,
unfortunately.
Nope, never mind. Sorry. Pretend I didn't say that.
We have the leopard with snakes coming out of its shoulders. I can't remember what that one's called, but we do have those.
Yeah.
I want to ask you both a little bit about your backgrounds and how you came to work at Paizo. Matt, first I want to gush a little bit, though, because Matt and I are both big fans of both Pathfinder and Starfinder. I think I have probably run close to like a decade, of years of Paizo, mostly Pathfinder first edition games, but also some second edition and like a teensy bit of Starfinder. So I'm a huge fan. I'm love everything you guys put out. So I'm very excited about this. Matt also has run like an extreme amount of Pathfinder.
Yes. I can't say too much because it's always fun, but yeah, I think four adventure paths down. So
Well, we're very, very lucky to have committed players and GMs like you, because we put out all these books every year, and they're just books on a shelf until y'all take them down and play them at your tables, right? So, like you folks are the ones that make the games come to life, and we can't do what we do without you. So thank you.
And I think we want to get to, and if you're tuning into the show for the first time or something, exactly how people like Rob and myself, game masters and players of Pathfinder, Starfinder, all the other great games Paizo makes, can support the Workers Union. But yeah, before we get to that, starting with Jason, could you just tell us a little about yourselves and your background and working at Paizo?
Yeah, for sure. So I was a former academic. I used to teach college English, writing, film, literature, and comics as a college professor. But about 3.5 years ago, I came to Paizo, a change of career. I started at Paizo as an editor on the editorial team. And I was an editor for about 1.5 years, learned so much about the job and about how games are made kind of from the inside. Like we see how all these games are made, and we often think that we know how they're made. But once you're in the building and it's not until you're going to the Monday stand-up meetings every week, that you really understand the entire process and how much work and how many people and how complex the entire thing is. It's just, so anyway, so I was an editor for about 1.5 years, and then, excuse me, A couple. I knew I wanted a position in the company that was more creative. I wanted to be helping to make the stories that we were putting out. And after I did a little bit of research, talking to the other team members that I worked with, I decided to set my sights on a developer position. And I kept my eyes out. And two members of the Starfinder developer team moved on. Owen Casey Stevens, who's a prominent member of our hobby and our industry, he moved on, and so did Owen. So did Chris Sims. Chris Sims, who was a Starfinder developer working on Adventure Paths. And well, as soon as I heard they were going to leave, I went to Amanda Heyman, who was our manager at the time. She now works at Wizards, and I told her, like, okay, as soon as Sims and Owen leave, like, you're getting my resume on your desk in the next day, right? And so 3 months later, Amanda got a letter on her desk that said, "Amanda, I warned you this day would come," right? And I was lucky that they were hiring two people, because John Compton was also trying out for the job, and I could never beat John Compton's resume. He'd been running organized play for a decade, right? But because they were hiring two, I got on, and I took Chris Sims's old seat, helping to develop Adventure Paths. My first project was Fly Free or Die, which was a 6-volume Starfighter Adventure Path, came out last year, briefly summarized as Eat the Rich in Space. And I'm now working on Drift Crashers, which is our 3-volume introductory AP for the upcoming Drift Crisis Starfinder line event, which we announced at Gen Con is coming out next year. But about 2 months ago, I moved into a new role as senior developer, working on both Pathfinder and Starfinder Adventure Paths. The Pathfinder team needed a little help to help keep those books coming out every month and on schedule. And so I came over, and so I just made my first pitch. I just pitched my first Pathfinder Adventure Path volume about last month. And I can't say anything about it, but it's super exciting. You're going to love it. And so that's kind of what I do. I kind of go back and forth every few months or so between Pathfinder and Starfinder, working on Adventure Paths all the time. And of course, I do a ton of freelancing for Paizo as well, but that's a symptom of larger problems that we'll probably talk about this hour. Andrew?
Well, my title at Paizo is Front-End Engineering Lead. I'm a member of the tech team, and I'm specifically tasked with trying to both keep the website as functional as possible and update it with varying results sometimes. But we've got a great team. We're all dedicated to making sure that things continue to work as well as we can make them work, while getting stuff behind the scenes slowly brought up to speed with current standards. So it's a difficult job, but we're passionate. We're dedicated enough to get it done, I think. My background is a little different from Jason's. I was actually, up until I guess almost 10 years ago at this point, but I was a private investigator for almost 11 years. And then right before my son was born, I decided, you know what, I should probably find a job that actually I get to be at home sometimes. So I had some tech background with mostly at the hobby level, where I'd set up servers and run websites and stuff like that. And I thought, yeah, you know what, I could probably do this, right? So I taught myself some of that stuff, got a bunch of part-time tech jobs, eventually got hired into a string of jobs working for various video game startups, most of which didn't last very long, as startups are wont to do. And I was working at on the Xbox team at Microsoft when I saw the job posting at Paizo, and thought, oh yeah, those are the guys that fixed Grapple. That sounds fun. So I went down there, and I had the interview with people, and seemed like a great company. Seemed like a reasonably stable company, which was a nice change from where I had been for the last few years.
Yeah.
And talked to everybody, and got the job. And I've been there for, how long have I been there? Almost 4 years now at this point. And a year or two, I think, after I started. I also started taking on freelance assignments for some of the devs, including Jason Tondro right here,
Yeah.
and that's been a blast to have that as a side gig. So yeah, it's great. I enjoy it very much, in spite of the issues that brought us to this point.
Yeah, and Andrew wrote The Great Grab Train Robbery, which is our second Starfinder one shot. Just came out, I think, just like last week.
I saw that. Matt and I love trains, and we also love we love a train robbery. So that's I haven't had a chance to dig into it, but I saw that came out, and I'm delighted. I can't wait to.
This is a classic. Here's my money situation, right? Like there is nothing bad about a great grab train robbery. It's all good.
No,
I think that was pretty much my reaction when you pitched that to me. You said like, "Hey, would you like to write this thing called the Great Grav Train Robbery?" And I was like, "You know what? Even if I weren't already interested, that title would have sold me." So
Right.
yes,
And Andrew did a fantastic job on it too. Like I just got finishing it, and getting it out, so it's really wonderful. You guys will love it.
oh, thank
Oh
you.
yeah.
Yeah.
let's get to the meat of this. You all very recently announced that you and a substantial number of Paizo employees were forming the United Paizo Workers, that you're working with the CWA to unionize. So I guess just tell us about the union to begin with, Andrew, if you don't mind.
So there had been rumblings about union forming among different parts of the company for quite some time, going back years, actually. I think part of the reason that it never really got off the ground prior to this was because the way Paizo is organized, we have kind of a unique organizational structure where the company is fairly fragmented. We've got a lot of managers compared to the number of people that are non-managerial staff. So you'd have a bunch of people in one department, and by department I mean in this case sometimes 3 or 4 people thinking like, hey, we should unionize, and somebody else thinking the same thing in a different department on the other side of the building, and neither one of them had any idea that the other one existed or was thinking the same things. So there have been some issues for a while. I think definitely the catalyst that kicked it off this time was when Sarah Marie was dismissed the day before Gen Con and Diego quit in solidarity.
Yeah.
I think that galvanized a lot of people because obviously both of them were well-loved and well-respected members of both the workforce and the community.
I remember everyone on the forums being, up in arms over those firings.
It was a rough day. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that it was the first day of the highest visibility week for any role-playing game company of the year certainly got a lot of eyes on it that might otherwise not have. But yeah, that definitely galvanized people quite a bit, in part because of people's natural reaction when they see somebody that they care about being treated in a way that they perceive to be unfair, and in part because it was a reminder of how tenuous anybody's employment can be. Okay. If the community leader who has 12 plus years of experience working at Paizo and is single-handedly responsible for things like the forums not being a hellhole all the time, and PaizoCon can just get randomly fired without warning. Anyone can. So that was certainly another motivator for people to say, you know what, maybe we got to get moving on this. And I think the fact also, ironically enough, because I think at least one previous unionizing effort had been derailed by COVID, I think the fact that we are all now in a single channel of communication because we're all using online chat programs has actually brought the company closer together. We actually interact with each other. Members of different departments interact with each other more frequently than they did before. And I think that certainly made it a lot easier for people to, I guess, both reach out to each other and have a feeling for how everybody was taking the situation. So again, just like with Jason, I was reached out to by a fellow member of the tech team who I think had been initially recruited by and was talking about, hey, what do you think about all this stuff's going on? And I was saying, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And maybe we should do something about it. Maybe we should make a public statement, or maybe we should reach out to the exec team, or maybe we should talk to people in other departments and see what's going on. And it turned out that some other people were way ahead of me on that, and that there was already a group of people talking about officially organizing. So that's where we are now. Well, I guess we're well past that now. But yes, that's where this started.
Yeah, and I want to just sort of piggyback a little bit about off of what Andrew was saying. Like we mentioned this very casually before the interview started, before we started to record. I really think that the COVID quarantine and global pandemic situation has, in many cases, woken up a lot of workers to their situation and maybe empowered them. I don't think it's a coincidence that there's a half a dozen major labor actions going on in America as we record. That some of this might just be because we're used to things like working from home. Like, people are working from home and they don't want to have to go back to the office. They've shown that they can do their job at home. So why should we go back to the office just because some manager wants us to? Other things might be stuff like, well, we're tired of working for peanuts. Like there's a labor shortage in this country, and it's not because people are getting high unemployment and so they're just choosing not to work. There's labor shortage because people refuse to work for crappy jobs, and they're not getting paid enough, right? And they're all starting to wake up, and I wouldn't go so far as to call it a unofficial nationwide general strike yet, but I would love to see something like that happen.
It's a strike wave, which is which can lead to that, and I think you're right. I don't think it's this dramatic at most like white collar jobs or necessarily, but a lot of bosses have shown that they don't care if you die, and the more mild version of that is they don't care if they've been shown across the board to not have a lot of loyalty to their workers, and right. I think you're right that workers in America are waking up to that.
Yeah.
So you sort of answered this, but I guess we can kind of roll a couple of questions into one. So, like, what prompted you to start this union, and I guess what are you asking for? What are your demands? Jason.
Sure. Well, Andrew already started off with this story about Sarah Marie and Diego's leaving the company. And that did start that conversation. And he's already kind of talked about how we started to kind of form up behind the scenes. Invited me and a lot of people invited other people like Andrew. And pretty soon we had a pretty big crowd together on. But then volunteers like Andrew stepped up to become part of our organizing committee, and because we had a half a dozen people on that committee, they were able to divide the labor of figuring out how to make this union actually happen. Because creating a union is just a lot of work, right? There's a lot of paperwork and meetings, and you got to do a lot of research and figure out what the process is. And they took that challenge, and pretty soon we were meeting with CWA reps and getting training on how to resist and anticipate anti-union activities by our company, and you
can say corporate overlords here. We know what they are.
and we got our logo and our website and our press release, and get all the sort of ducks in a row, and then. We waited to go public until we had the right number of people, until we had
always
a super majority of employees.
Very smart.
Yeah. Well, I think our CWA rep wants us to succeed. Like they're here to provide us good advice. They want us to succeed. So they're like, well, look, don't go public until you have a super majority, because there's about 50 eligible employees at Paizo, and as Andrew was telling us all, I think just the other day, like. This would be so much harder if we were a bigger company, right? Like, one of the things we've learned is how because we're small, it's a lot easier. We all know everybody, and we can we can make a spreadsheet and track every employee, and they're all standard. Well, anyway, so we only need 26. We need 50% plus one to win a vote, but we don't want to go into the 6 to 8 week vote process with the bare minimum required to win, right? We want some insurance there, some a little bit of a safety net. So So we waited until we had over 70% of our employees with 35 plus. And so then we released the press release and we went public. Andrew, do you want to tackle like what our issues are? Like what we're...
Oh, sure. I just would like to also add on to that was that the we did contact as many people as possible before we went public. Since we have gone public, we've actually gotten more people on board signing cards.
Oh yeah, that's exciting.
Not all of them are wanting to be public for various reasons or another,
Sure.
but they have signed cards and they have indicated that if it comes to a vote, they will vote yes. So if it does come to a vote, I think we've got a very substantial lead, even more so than we did before.
That's right.
I think one of the things that we did when we were initially organizing was we polled the people in our group to see what issues were of most importance to people, and the top two, I believe, well, the top three, I guess I'll just say three because three is a nice even number, but the top three are pay equity, especially for the lowest paid groups, including some people like CS and warehouse who are barely being paid a living wage. Financial transparency is another big one, in part because we need to know more about the company's finances in order to know whether or not it's even feasible to request pay equity. We've always operated on the understanding that our profit margins are thin and it's a niche industry, so there's only so much money to go around. But without getting regular updates on the company's finances, we don't know how much of that there really is to split amongst the workforce and how it's being split. So that's something that we've asked for. We actually used to do that. At least we've done that once a few years ago. We used to have state of the company meetings where we'd find out, how the company was doing and what was selling well and all that stuff. But we haven't had one of those in a while. So we'd like to see more of that. And the third one, as Jake alluded to earlier, is a lot of people have expressed interest in extended or permanent work from home options. Now, I don't know what that necessarily means. That's something that we negotiate with the company. It could mean literally everybody just works from home all the time. It could mean a hybrid. It could mean a bunch of different things. But obviously, that's one option that could be looked at in lieu of pay raises, because as Jake also alluded to, that is one potential way that people could make their paychecks go farther. So, and it's potentially, if they don't need as much office space, that's one way to free up a lot of money that could go towards pay raises. So it's definitely a consideration on the same level as the first two.
Yeah, and the issue of like financial transparency at the company is important because even if our CFO gets up and gives a 2-hour meeting about what the company is doing, well, we just have the CFO's word that that's all true, right? Like, and we as employees deserve a seat at the table, and we deserve to be able to see the books. This is a company that we work for, that we've devoted our precious hours and lives and sweat and labor to. We deserve to know where the money is being spent. And we deserve to have a voice in helping to decide how that money is being spent.
I would add to that also that one issue that didn't make the top three because it's not as applicable to all of the company, but is nonetheless extremely important to a lot of us, is that at the moment the executive team is very laser focused on editorial, and the ops teams in particular, like the warehouse team, the customer service team, the tech team, none of us really have much of a voice at the executive level. And that's something that we would like to see change. We would like to see more consideration for those teams' needs being addressed by people who actually understand what those teams' needs are because they work with them on a regular basis.
This has been important in the union because as we form a organization committee, a lot of the groups that Andrew just talked about, tech team, warehouse, ops, those people are on the the organizing committee for the union, and so they get to help ensure that that's true. We have to make sure that it includes the entire company and not just the editorial side of it, not just the developers and the designers, but it's got to include, because if we don't, then management will use that division against us, and they'll pit us against each other, and they'll break the union that way. So we have to be all in it together. And Andrew's absolutely right. We need to make sure that union representation speaks for the entire workers' body and not just, the quote unquote creatives.
Hell yeah. Well, I wanted to congratulate both you and the other employees on just sort of making it out of in some ways, the most dangerous part of union organizing. That's sort of organizing in secret, where you're more vulnerable to retaliation, and you're all public now, and you have that super majority. I think it might be useful for some of our listeners who are not as familiar with unionization to walk everyone through, like, I guess, what's the next steps now that you have a super majority, now that you've gone public. What are the possible paths that can happen? And then, of course, like, how can we help, right? How can, players and game masters of Paizo games really support all of you?
The next step is to wait and hear what management has to say in response. They've been radio silent since we went public. We've been hearing rumors through the grapevine that we might be hearing something early next week, but we haven't received anything official yet. And to my knowledge, they've been in meetings pretty much nonstop since we went public, probably discussing the options. Our hope is that they will voluntarily recognize the union. That would certainly be the easiest for everybody involved, and it would really be a net win for everyone. It's obviously a net win for the union, but it's also a net win for the company at large, because that's the current, we haven't mentioned the freelancer strike yet, but that is currently what the freelancers who are currently on strike and have been for several weeks and are currently essentially holding up our entire product release schedule for the rest of the year. That's what they've asked for.
I was going to ask this later, but I would actually love to bring this up before we get into next steps, because this to me is one of the more, as a former freelancer myself, one of the most exciting and interesting things about this effort is that you are all working together with Paizo's substantial freelancer contingent. So can you tell us a bit about what that looks like?
Well, first of all, it works because our freelancer contingent is amazing. I mean, in addition to being incredibly talented content creators, they care about the people that they work with. They care about the company and its ideals, and they have, in a very real sense, endangered their own financial well-being in order to support us. They have been on strike effectively, not taking on new assignments, and in some cases not turning in assignments that they had already taken. They had ever since the initial incident at the beginning of Gen Con. Part of the reason that this is particularly noteworthy is because traditionally freelance labor would have been used as a tool against the union, because they'd say, okay, we don't need you, we can just get all these other people outside the company to do the job. And the fact that the freelancers came out ahead of this and were already on strike by the time we announced the union gave us an incredible amount of leverage. So they continue to do amazing work supporting us. We loved them already, but we love them even more now. They are an absolutely integral part of making this work. And I can't overstate how important their efforts have been to us. But their current demands have pivoted now since we announced publicly to simply voluntarily recognize the union. So if management makes that decision and says, okay, we'll voluntarily recognize the union and begin negotiations, then work starts up again, and we've all gotten what we want. I think that's the clear, most beneficial, most quickest resolution to the problem. There's the possibility that for whatever reason they decide not to do that, which I hope they don't do, but traditionally, in the past, companies do fight this. And if that happens, they will call in they will call in the lawyers, the union busting firms will come in, and they will attempt to demoralize the union effort by spreading misinformation, pitting different members of the team against each other, trying to split us up, making promises, all the different kinds of dirty tricks that they can come up with. But I think, as Jake alluded to earlier, thanks to this being standard practice, CWA already has their playbook. They already know exactly what to expect, and we all went through an inoculation training meeting beforehand so that we know what to expect. So if it comes to that, I honestly am not particularly concerned that we'll have trouble sticking together. We're already a very tight-knit group, and when we know what to expect, we're already prepared to keep each other appraised of what might be tried against us, and just keep everybody in the loop at the same time. So if that does happen, we've got potentially 6 to 8 weeks of that, and then it comes to a vote. And then if we have managed to maintain the comfortable majority that we've got right now, then we have the vote and we win anyway. In the unlikely possibility that they manage to strip off a large portion of the union supporters somehow, then we don't win the vote, and we go back to things as normal. But I think the odds of that happening are vanishingly small at this point.
Yeah, I wanna agree with Andrew. For example, a standard anti-union tactic is to create essentially a no committee, where the management goes out and they look for employees that are not publicly in favor of the union, and they get that group to form a committee and publicly be against the union and start putting out social media and press releases and trying to convince people, and they start trying to rely on the connections between those people and other workers to woo some folks over from yes to no. Well, listen, if you tried to get together every eligible employee that hasn't gone public, you couldn't field a football team. Like, there's not enough people. Like, there's and so there's this is only going to end in one way. And the question is are we gonna take 6 to 8 weeks to do the vote, or can the company recognize us, get those freelancer contracts turned in, and we can. And I want to note, by the way, I want to clarify, like, those of us that work at Paizo, we are not on strike. We are working. We are doing our jobs every day. And some freelancers can't afford to go on strike. This is why I'm a little leery of calling the freelancers action a strike, only because that implies that people that are still writing for Paizo as freelancers are somehow some kind of scabs or something. It's not like that.
It's a work stoppage, and it's
Yeah,
not a full. It's not a full strike. And I wanted to clarify this, that you're not asking for a strike or a boycott.
That's right.
Yet.
That's right. We are. And let's get to the second part of your question, which was, how can people help? Okay, so this is a great question, and we are eager for your help. UnitedPaizoWorkers.org is our website. And on the fact there, you will see a big section about how do I help. So if anything that I'm talking about goes too fast, or you're not sure how to get that information, just go to United Paizo Workers and check the FAQ, and all the answers are there for you. We would love for you to write the executive team. And that's Lisa Stevens.
This is Jeff, Lisa, and Eric.
That's right. Lisa Stevens, Jeff Alvarez, and Eric Mona. Write to them. We posted all their emails on our website. And you can, and we ask you to be nice about it. We are not asking for angry letters. We do not want threats. We don't want you to, like, I'm never gonna buy anything from Paizo again. Like that. We're not trying to do that. We are extending. These people are our friends, right? Like I firmly believe that Lisa, who has led this company for so many years, she's now mostly stepped back. She's kind of in semi-retirement now. But she's still the chief executive officer for the company. I honestly believe that Lisa wants to do the right thing. And I believe that Eric wants to do the right thing. And so I encourage the people out there who are listening and who want to write to those folks and encourage them to do the right thing. And if you have, for example, stopped buying Paizo products because of the Paizo accountability hashtag and the dismissal of Sarah Marie and Diego, well, this is a great reason for you to come back, right? And you can say that. You can say, like, I would love to renew all of my subscriptions for Paizo, and as soon as you recognize the union, I will do that, right? I've read a lot of Twitter posts over the last 48 hours from people who are like, I've never bought a Paizo book in my life. But if they go union, hell yeah. Like, I'll buy the core rule book, right?
This is a pledge that I have made and I'm going to make, and I'm going to encourage, our listeners and my peers to do. But I love Paizo products, and there's many more I could buy, but I will, if they recognize the union, I will absolutely start up my subscription again. There's a couple books I've been holding off on, and I think that's a great promise to make. And listeners, again, be polite in your emails if you're going to write them, but this would be a good thing to put.
Yeah.
So, Dungeon Master of None listeners, listen, if this dumb podcast exists for nothing else than this episode, this is, we are going to put all of the links to the FAQ and the United Paizo Workers website in the show notes, and the links to the executive team's email address. I sent them all very nice letters, nice but strong letters that they need to recognize voluntarily the union tonight. And if you do nothing else for us at the show, you need to email the Paizo team today.
Go to our community forums. There's a number of threads there. And listen, and forums can often be, as I think Andrew described it, kind of a hellscape, right? But listen, you don't have
Rob,
to...
have you ever gotten into an argument with someone on the Paizo community forum? All right.
No.
Rules.
I'm no longer a regular on the Paizo forums, but there was a time when I they were civil arguments. I never got banned or anything.
Yeah, they were.
But
they were civil. You were always very respectful.
The forums are actually great. So
Rob is the honorable poster. Always.
This is actually funny because when you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, you know what? You guys do a good job of making the forums mostly like manageable. They're forums, so they're always going to have that forum feel, but they're usually pretty civil by comparison.
I think definitely something that needs to be inserted here is that the reason they are civil is because of our absolutely stellar customer service team, which was, of course, previously headed by Sarah Marie, who risk their sanity on a daily basis to make sure that the forums remain as little of a hellscape as possible.
It is a thankless job, and customer service people all need to get paid. Like community leads, they all need to get paid a lot more for the work that they do. So
I want to encourage folks to go to our forums, and you don't have to argue about stuff. If you see people there like saying bad things, you don't need to engage. You can just go right to the thread that says United Paizo Workers. It's got 5 stars on it. It's got hundreds of posts on it, and you can just post there and talk about how much you support what we're doing and how much you want to see these games and this company flourish. If you like the idea of unionizing, then we could use your support, and you can state that in public. On social media, we are at Paizo Workers, and you can follow us, and you can retweet us, and you can talk about our hashtag Unionize Paizo. And these are all parts of our, the overall kind of social media tsunami that we're trying to get rolling and keep rolling for as long as we can. The last thing I want to say about how you can help is we're going to need your help long term. Like if it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks for a vote, and we've already filed with the National Labor Relations Board, so we are not waiting for an official statement from Paizo's executives to recognize the union or choose not to. We have already filed, and that's underway, but it's slow. And so we have to plan for the marathon, right? Like, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So please keep with us and continue to support us, because the members, the employees at Paizo, we're fired up and we're ready to go. But as time goes on, it's harder, all right? And we're asking you to help us out by showing your support long term.
Yeah. Matt already mentioned this, but I'm just very
Say it
impressed.
again, Rob.
Very impressed by the organization of this union. We've seen a couple of high-profile unionizations fail. Obviously, you have some advantages because you are close-knit and it's a smaller shop, but,
right.
Coming into it with a supermajority, the CWA seems like they've done a really good job of prepping you for what comes next.
Yeah.
You are positioned for success, and that's very, very I guess I love to see it. You love to see it. There's been a couple of obviously an Amazon warehouse is going to be a real challenging thing to unionize, but there were a couple of big pushes this year that failed and they were disappointing. So I'm very optimistic about this, and I'm very excited about how prepared you seem to be. So many kudos to you for your organization on this.
I would like to add that a tremendous amount of the credit for that goes to our community. We could have made all the Twitter posts that we wanted to, and if there was nobody around to boost them and share them and tell other people and support us publicly, it wouldn't have gone anywhere near as far as it did. Okay. The fact that we have such a passionate community, and the fact that that community is so supportive of the people that produce the things that they love, has been incredibly gratifying, and we appreciate everybody's support so much. That's what made this as successful so far as it has been. And I just wanted to thank everybody again for that.
It's funny because like you can see what's going on here, because if an Amazon warehouse tries to go on strike, well, nobody knows anybody who works in that warehouse, right? Like they're a bunch of anonymous people, and they can try and go out and reach out, but they're still like, there's just part of this faceless giant Amazon mob. But Paizo has spent the last 20 years building an incredibly energetic fan base that loves the game and loves the people that make it, right? Like we throw PaizoCon every year when we do a big banquet, and we're all told to, we got to wear our blue shirts all the time, and we have to show up at that banquet. And the point of that is you are there for the fans. You are there to because the fans came here to interact with you, and they're right. That's absolutely right. And I don't know. I'm sure Andrew's the same way, but I get incredibly juiced by hanging out with Paizo fans, right? Like the people that play our games, the people that run our games, that buy our books and read them, are just fantastic, amazing people, and they love what we make, and we love what we make, and so anyway, my point is that we are uniquely positioned in terms of industries, because we have been doing community outreach for 2 decades. And now is where it all pays off, right?
Yeah, I will say that Ted was absolutely blown away by the outpouring of public support that we got. We had a meeting with him on Friday, the day after the announcement, and he basically said, "I've never seen anything like this." And
we haven't mentioned this yet. But if this succeeds, and it really does seem like you have the win in your sales, it'll be the first tabletop role-playing gaming company union, which is a small thing but an exciting thing. I think there's one would hope that it would lead to additional unionizations, but it's an exciting and big first step.
It's my hope. I think that hopefully we succeed, and if we do succeed, I think that the gaming industry writ large is desperately in need of this sort of thing. Having worked at a number of video game startups and companies, I think that, especially given a lot of recent high-profile cases with Blizzard and Ubisoft and others, it's desperately needed in this space. And I would like to think that if we do succeed here, it'll inspire others to do the same. And I don't know. I'm sure that organizing something like Blizzard would be a massive undertaking, partly because they're huge and partly because they have $1 billion to spend on union busting fees. But there are many small video game studios the size of Paizo or smaller, even locally around here, that could certainly do what we've managed to do here so far, and I hope they do.
Most role-playing game companies are like 3 people part-timing it, right? Like they're like side gigs. But there are some companies that include a full-time staff. And there's also related companies like board game companies and miniature war game companies and all kinds of other, and the video game companies like Andrew already mentioned. And Paizo is bigger than some of those and smaller than others. And it would be very exciting. Just the fact that Paizo can unionize, that we can show it can be done. But I don't want to get too far ahead of our skis, like it's easy to build castles in the sand, but right now I just want to get recognition, and I want to get union representation at the table.
I I find it kind of funny in that when I first started playing Pathfinder, one of the favorite things I was drawn to about the world of Galarian is the Pathfinder society in the game lore. Now, okay, before all the lore nerds jump down my throat and send me a weird message about the corruption within the venture captains of the Pathfinder Society, the Pathfinder Society in the game is kind of like an adventurers union.
Yeah.
And so I find it great that y'all, the company who kind of wrote that into your game lore, are leading the way.
There's all kinds of union representation in our products. The Kobold Union in Agents of Edgewatch is a famous recent example. I just wrote Igwil's Lost and Found Curiosity Shop for Lost to Omen's Grand Bazaar, and he's explicitly pro-union and a labor organizer. We've got an article on unions of the galaxy in my Fly Free or Die adventure path. I mean, we are not shy about this stuff.
Somebody tracked down a reference that implied that Abadar was actually pro-union.
Yeah.
Which was a surprise to everyone.
That's great.
But apparently we've got precedent in the lore.
Nice.
I think this is just like the type of people who tend to play these games lately. But almost all of my recent campaigns that I've run, regardless of setting, have involved my players either attempting to or forming some sort of union or unionizing, often goblins or kobolds or monsters, or they're in a dungeon and I'm like, no, hang on, you can't form a union right now. Those are skeletons. They're hostile. Can we focus, please? Anyway, I think it's a great fit, and I love how I love how present it is in the lore. Yeah.
Different games do this differently, but our games and the games that we are descended from are inherently cooperative. Like that's the heart of the game mechanic, is like you need the wizard and the fighter and the cleric and the rogue, and you kind of need everybody to make the party function. Like we have secretly been training an entire generation of pro-union activists, and so now is the payoff.
If you can get 5 people to sit down for 3 hours and not yell at each other and focus on the same thing, and everybody have a good time. Listen, I'm not going to say that unionizing is easier, or it's clearly not. But like you've got a pretty big step up in getting people to work towards a unified goal.
For real.
I will say you just made me desperately want to write something about a bunch of skeletons and zombies and ghouls unionizing against the necromancer who runs the dungeon, and they're on strike, and while they're on strike, the adventurers are looting the dungeon without any resistance. I could see there's some potential there.
There's something there, yeah.
Definitely.
One of the last things I want to say is that a lot of the things that people in the community and people at Paizo have been calling for in the last couple of years is more diversity, more inclusion in the game industry,
Sure.
The ability to protect people who have been historically or today oppressed, protect our trans brothers and sisters and siblings in the community. And obviously no one is saying that, oh, if we only had a union, everything would be perfect. All fights would be over. But forming this union is a big and important step to achieving those long-term goals.
I think that union representation is important for everybody, but it's particularly important for those who are the most vulnerable to discrimination or harassment, including trans employees, women, people of color. And that's one of the things that is very important to us. We do have representation from those groups on the committee and in the union itself at large, and it's very important to us. I think that making it so that people have recourse should something like that happen again will make it less likely to happen again in the first place. And should it happen again, now they've got legal representation to actually do something about it, rather than just keep quiet for fear of losing their jobs.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways the union can help with this. It can help with, like Andrew was talking about, like we can have protections in place for employees that are discriminated against in the workplace. We can also change our hiring practices to make sure that potential new employees have a fair shot, regardless of their background and socioeconomic status. I mean, right now, if you can't afford to move to Seattle, you can't work for Paizo. Well, that's kind of messed up, right? Like, and also we have our freelancers are fantastic, and we Andrew's already very eloquently spoken about how strong our partnership is with them. And as a result, what's happened is often we've gone to the freelancers when we had a very short time period to hire new people. And that makes perfect sense, but there's a lot of other people who aren't in our freelancer pool who deserve a chance at those positions. And we want to move our hiring practices back to the way that we have done it in the past, where we publicly post all positions, and anybody can apply for those jobs. And then when you get past the first stage, and we can give you a test. We can give you an editorial test or a development test or a design test. And then those tests are anonymized, and all of your distinguishing characteristics are removed from them. And the team that you would work on reads and grades those tests, and then move to the interview stage when they don't know who you are, right? That's how I was hired. And that's the way that it should be. And we have done that in the past. But sometimes when we get in a time crunch, we start, well, we need somebody right now, so let's go to one of these. And so there's ways that a union can do a lot of things. They can put protections in place in the workplace for current employees. They can improve our hiring practices to give more diverse people a shot at joining Paizo in the first place. And there's all kinds of stuff we can do. Absolutely.
So to recap for our listeners, what you need to do from this important conversation, it's just 4 simple things that these wonderful workers, these brothers and sisters and siblings of us, are asking of us. They don't ever ask us for much, right? But they're asking us something for now, which is just to go ahead and use the links in the descriptions, email 3 members of the executive team. If you have a Paizo forum account, post your solidarity kindly there and share on social media. I personally, because I know I have lots of friends who play Pathfinder and Starfinder, not the most online. God bless them. They're much happier for it. Go ahead and send them a text message or an email, right? And be like, hey, I'm doing this. We remember when we played Rise of the Rune Lords 7 years ago? The bill has come due. We need to help out our Paizo workers. So email your friends, everyone you've played a role-playing game with, and tell them to get on board with this and to join you in supporting the United Paizo workers.
We've also got a pack available on the support page at unitedpaizoworkers.org. We have an art pack that people can use with a bunch of cool icons and frames and Twitter backgrounds and Zoom backgrounds and other ways that you can just show your solidarity on social media. So feel free to go over there, download it, and check it out.
Yeah, all props to Logan Bonner, Pathfinder designer, who designed it ago, and he's been, he did a great job on it.
Yeah, it's spectacular.
Before we get to any final words from the two of you, and thank you again, Jason and Andrew, for coming on the show. I know you're doing so much work right now to promote this, so we really appreciate you coming on our show. This may be the most cringe moment of the show, and we can cut it, but I wrote you a poem.
Oh my goodness!
You didn't tell me he was going to do this.
I didn't.
I would never. I'll tell you that.
I'm not cutting this.
We're not cutting this.
Okay. All right.
Leave it in. Leave it in.
So I can't sing, but imagine this is to the tune of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and of course another very famous song. It is we who wrote the modules, designed the adventures where they play, dug the dungeons and built the castles, miles of plot railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving midst the Paizo we have made, but the Union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than dragons' hoarded gold, greater than the might of the Starstone, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new Galarian from the ashes of the old, for the Union makes us strong. Solidarity forever.
I cannot promise that we will make a video with a bunch of Paizo employees singing that Celebrity Imagine video style, but I also can't
it's yours
promise
if
that
you
we
want
won't.
to.
I'll send you the lyrics with the other not as good verses as well.
Listen, make sure that you send me that, because I I love a good union song. Like every union movement needs a. You said you wrote us a poem.
It's
You
songs.
did not write us a poem. You wrote us a union song, man.
Oh yeah.
Well, Matt can't sing. He should have told me I can sing. We should.
Oh yeah, I should have given
Matt.
it to Rob. I sent a message to Billy Bragg. He hasn't gotten back to me yet.
He wasn't available for this one, but maybe later.
He's busy. He would help us if he wasn't so.
If he weren't so busy.
He's tired. He deserves some rest.
Jake and Andrew, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. Again, solidarity and much encouragement. I have high hopes, and I hope that your union drive is successful. We'll include all sorts of things so that people know how to support you. Any final thoughts for us or for our listeners before we let you go?
I just want to thank everybody out there. I want to thank the two of you for inviting us on and giving us the opportunity and the platform to talk about these issues. And I'm incredibly grateful to everybody who's shown their support for us so far. Please continue to do that. And, don't split the party.
Yep, pretty much what Jake said. As I said before, the reason that we've managed to do this so much in so short a time is because our community is so fantastic, and you guys and everybody listening to this podcast are part of that community. So, thank you for the support. We love you. Keep it up, and yeah, don't split the party. Can't say that enough.
Don't split the party.
Don't split the party. Thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend and good luck. And we're gonna change our sign off to just what we just said. Don't split the party.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union makes us strong. It is we who plowed the prairies, built the cities where they trade, dug the mines and built the workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving mid the wonders we have made, but the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever.